They say when you wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You play any and every position. From coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And, oh my goodness, let's see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you, but what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today. Yeah.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. What's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like right here, Black Power Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball. And again, I'm welcoming you, by the way, to Black Power Media, which is fast becoming, if not already, your daily source of emancipatory journalism and the restoration of the radical meaning to the phrase Black Power. Welcome. Greetings, everybody. If you're here live, peace, welcome. If you're here later, not live, peace and welcome to you as well, whatever time and place you are seeing it. Yeah, I appreciate that. Shout out to May. Right on, right on. Thank you, James, and welcome. Okay, so a couple things to get into today, of course, with buying power being central to it. But just very quickly, I did want to start off by making a couple of announcements. One is that the voting, I cast my vote this morning for the Howard County, or I should say specifically the Hickory Ridge Village Board. So the revolution is coming. But we'll see. So I'll announce the results when I hear them, and we'll see. I don't know. I hung out at a little community event last night and met with some of the other candidates and folks, my neighbors in the community. And it's always wild to see people that you don't like in that capacity. And there was one in particular. I'm going to tell that story one day. And the look on their face suggested they might know that story is coming. Yeah, I'm going to tell that story one day. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's right. I am the revolution. And it starts with this village board election. So, by the way, I made a tentative arrangement. Speaking of the revolution, I made a tentative arrangement, if you all are interested, to do this along with me and us. Daruba has tentatively agreed to, in an ongoing response to series discussion, to allow me to suffer the viewing of the new series, the documentary about Tupac and Afeni Shakur, where specifically I'm going to ask Daruba, obviously, about how it appears that they represent Afeni, the Panthers, the Panther 21 trial. We'll see how they do all of that. So I look forward to that. He's agreed to do that. I appreciate that we have the ability to reach out to folks like Daruba. Oh, word. Today's Lennon's birthday. Word, right on. Happy birthday, Lenin. So if Daruba applying his Leninists or his styled version of Marxist Leninist analysis to that series, we'll see how that goes, and I look forward to that. You're right. I still do have to watch Marighella. Is that how you say it? Marighella? Yeah. So yeah. Oh, really? Man, I haven't heard from him in a minute. That sounds interesting. I have to check that out myself. Okay. All right. It wasn't that bad. You watched 2 of the 5 yesterday. Low-key pleasantly surprised because I didn't expect much. All right. We'll see. I've been arguing the Vernon philosophy is ever more tested with is tested with ever great increasing sophistication, and that actually is a perfect segue to get into this next piece. So the other piece I wanted to say very quickly before I actually get into that segue is that we finally have submitted the forward from Dr. Derek Hamilton. So the second edition of the Buying Power of the Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power is fully in, and there was a little bit of a wait to get the forward, but as I told him, I'm not mad if you do what you did, and he did what it do. So I will say this. You know what? I'm a just because you all this is how we treat our remixers here. I'm gonna give you all the preview to the first paragraph. Because this is let's see. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. I wasn't even sure I would do this, but let's do this. Let's do this right here. Let's do this. And then we're going to do it like this here. And like that right there. Yeah. Because I don't need to front about being excited. Embracing all the contradictions. So let's get the preview working here. There we go. And let's check this out here. Here's a preview of the first. This is the first look. All scholarship, all public policy, and all remedies begin with a normative set of values. This is not a general critique. Rather, it is simply a statement of fact, a fact that opens the door for productive and critical engagement with any program, structure, or policy, any identification or framing of what is or is not a problem, and any purported solution to said problem. There are few examples that reveal the powerful effect of these discourses, framings, and purported solutions than the notions of Black buying power. And no one has dispelled the myth with clarity. No one has dispelled this myth with clarity, purpose, and overwhelming empirics more than Professor Jared Ball in this seminal text. Boom! That's what I'm talking about. Appreciate it, Dr. Hamilton. Yeah. Ha! That's what I'm talking about. If you go, that's how you open up. That's all that was. And then he goes on to kill it for a few more pages. So it gets better, but I was almost good right there. That was it. Seminal. Say that. That was it. I love it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate that. Okay. Oh, I don't know about that. Hold up now. Alexander might need to be higher up on that list. But anyway, all right. But so the segue I was thinking of in terms of Lenin, Daruba, and then where I did want to start this investigation into some new emergences of buying power. I just threw together some notes this way. So if folks remember the other day when I interviewed Dr. Oba Tashaka, he mentioned this here, and in fact, let me come back here. He mentioned the work of Frank Kitson in low intensity operations. So I picked up the book, at least this book. I don't know if Kitson has written about it elsewhere, and I've only gotten through the first chapter, but the tone it sets is right on point. Right, it's in many ways perfect for the not what I do in the buying power book itself, but in terms of what would be closer to my overall analysis beyond buying power, just specifically. And I think dovetails a lot with a lot of the work we're engaged with on this platform, and was even making me think of Coco's response to William Anderson from the other day in terms of her important emphasis on nationalism. Now, Kitson is writing from the perspective of the opposition, shall we say. Kitson, the book is was published in 1971. Kitson is writing after a career as a brigadier, is how he's described in the British military, having been involved with what they describe as peacekeeping operations in Malaya, Kenya, and Cyprus. So he's bringing the British colonial imperial military mind to the discussion here of low intensity operations. So, and in this initial chapter, what Kitson says is that the primary concern he's dealing with is insurgency and subversion. And as I've written here, insurgency for subversion. So insurgency is the stage of engaging in propaganda and military and well, in fact, I'll just read you his definition. But is the initial step in preparation for what he says is the subversion, which is the actual assault on the existing government or power. So okay. Yeah, I thought I had it right there. What is the Anyway, my bad. My apologies. Well, as he says here, it is possible to identify 3 separate factors as being responsible for the rise in incidents of subversion, but that's after he's defined it, right? I know I'm skipping a step. Where is the All right, I'll come back to that. But insurgency is, again, both involve armed conflict, both involve propaganda, but insurgency is the preparation of the revolutionary force, as I would define it, for the actual aggressive attempt to overthrow the existing power of government. The overall concern is the conflict in the emerging Cold War with Russia and the prevention of the spread of communism. Kitson goes into a discussion of the importance of guerrilla warfare and as a concern that from his perspective needs to be prepared against. So as he says here, there is nothing new about subversion or insurgency. Writing in the Encyclopedia Britannica, Robert Asprey has this to say about guerrilla war, using the term in roughly the same way as insurgency is defined in this book. Guerrilla warfare, by tradition, is a weapon of protest employed to rectify real or imagined wrongs levied on a people either by a foreign invader or by the ruling government. As such, and I thought that was actually an important inclusion, or by the ruling government. So in other words, guerrilla warfare can be engaged in by all sides, according to this definition. As such, it may be employed independently or it may be used to complement orthodox military operations. In either capacity, the importance of its role has varied considerably throughout history. The important point to notice is that guerrilla warfare is described as a traditional form of conflict and that it has been used throughout history, either independently or in conjunction with orthodox operations. He goes on to make reference to Sun Tzu, to Mao Zedong's reference to Sun Tzu, et cetera, and so forth. But then he goes into the three concerning factors from his point of view, that is the point of view of empire from colonial power, that must be addressed in preventing the rise of insurgency and preventing an initial effort at insurgency from evolving to the level of subversion. Yeah. Okay. So the first is the attitude of the people, or specifically the concern. The first of, as he says, of these concerns is the changing attitude of people towards authority. So got to make sure that the attitude of the people is adjusted properly, so as not to cohere to the point of, again, beginning the initial process of insurgency, insurgent development, or subversion. The second relates to the techniques of influence by which those attitudes can be manipulated. So as he writes here, that is Kitson, the second relates to the development of techniques by which men can influence the thoughts and actions of other men. The third factor is the limitation imposed on higher forms of conflict by the development of nuclear weapons. So he goes on to talk, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but he goes on to talk about the fact that because Russia and the United States are nuclear powers, and the idea is that those two will cancel each other out, and all that can be left to fight with are the more other forms of traditional, including guerrilla warfare. Because again, they define guerrilla warfare as part of the traditional battery of forms of conflict. So I do think it's interesting that he, it's an interesting point in the way that they approach this, that rather than fearing nuclear annihilation, the focus becomes, well, that is less of a threat than is, especially at this point he's writing in the late 60s, early 70s, of the next decades as he's preparing for national and decolonial struggle. So he's saying, look, over the next several decades, as these folks look to become sovereign, people, the colonies all around the world look to become free. Let's worry less about nuclear conflict and more about low intensity operations. So he talks a little bit about nationalist fervor, In fact, he says on the next page, for the first 15 years after the end of the Second World War, nationalistic fervor in the context of freedom from colonialism was the most usual cause of uprisings, and 12 of the 20 examples quoted as worldwide insurgencies by Julian Paget come under this heading. So then he goes on to talk about how, though that was the trend over the first 15 years, there's no need to think that there's going to be any change in course over the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So he's saying this is what they're doing, decolonizing, nationalism, and that tendency starts leading towards the development of these attitudes, which need adjustment. All right. So then he goes into, which I couldn't help but find incredibly fascinating, a brief discussion of, well, how are these attitudes going to be managed? So he starts talking about the emergence of wireless and television, and starts to talk about this in the context of whose propaganda is going to win. So he says, well, listen, this new technology and this new ability to communicate vision and goals can be turned into something that will support these insurgents who want to subvert our imperial dominance over the world. But he says their propaganda could be nullified by more effective propaganda put out by the other side. But this would involve more thought, effort, and money being devoted to the purpose than has usually been the case in the past. Whereas it would be perfectly possible to stem the tide of subversive propaganda, it would require a great deal of optimism to predict any great swing in favor of those whose business is to protect the existing order during the next 10 years. In other words, empire, if you want to hold your control over this empire, start investing more and more and more in resources into the development of propaganda and the manipulation of people's attitudes, and thereby nullifying the subversive use of new media with more funding and effective propaganda. So I was thinking of this in terms of whether it's Stoner Saunders' work or Chris Simpson's work or others that I probably talked about before, George, previously a few decades before this, Creel's work. The clarity is lovely, and especially thinking about Chris Simpson's work. This is what he ends up talking about in terms of the evolution of the field of communication studies in the United States. Same mission. And by the way, I think this is I love that I'm a perfect this particular program is perfectly situated to be the introductory or opening act for Warrior class at 1 o'clock. It's perfect, in many ways perfect. So he's writing that is Kitson is writing this in 1971. So he's thinking, from 70 to 81, from 71 to 81, those next 10 years, all of the kinds of funding and the effort at, and even if I was even thinking of Mark Anthony Neal's work on the development of all those sitcoms targeting Black America, meaning to replace the demand for Black visibility to sort of counteract, to raise Black visibility is not Black power, to sort of be the visibility that is not power. The development of what's happening in Sanford and Son and all these shows, the Jeffersons and Good Times, all of this television, all of this assault on nationalism, assault on anti-colonial politics, assaults on radicalism, all of it is perfect, is part of this low intensity operation that Kitson is talking about, and part of a Cold War struggle over public opinion research. He's saying get busy with it, because they're going to use this new technology to convey their messaging. They're going to do, in this context, I know he's writing about the British context specifically, but in this context, it's, Robert and Mabel Williams are going to do their Radio Free Dixie. They're going to do their intercommunal news service. They're going to do their, they're going to, they're going to do that sort of guerrilla underground press and journalism. So we have to counteract that with even more. And then he has an interesting part in this chapter where he talks about it's creating the it's the contradiction recreating itself, because he even pauses for a moment to say, all of this spending that the Soviet Union is going to have to do, that the United States is going to have to do, that Britain is going to have to do, is likely going to exacerbate the inequality that causes people to head towards their nationalism and anti-colonialism, that causes you to put more resources in the propaganda to counteract their revolutionary take. So at no point does anybody stop to say, hey, why don't we just stop abusing these people, redistribute wealth, redistribute land, redistribute actual rights and freedom, and then we don't have to put funding into suppressing people. No, but that's not, they can't, that's not even on the table for consideration. We're going to oppress you. We're going to abuse you. So what are we going to do about that? Because the colonialism is not going to stop. And we can't escalate combat operations too much, because eventually the Cold War turns into a hot war, and then we have nuclear warfare. So with that also being off the table, we have to focus on, again, all of this low intensity stuff. We're going to manipulate them psychologically, and then, as I'm going to conclude here in a moment, we're going to manipulate them with what does he call it? Economic pressure. So that's ultimately how he concludes this first chapter, specifically by making reference to what is ultimately the point of colonization. The last paragraph of chapter 1 on page 28 starts with, "This competition for resources is a difficult matter to resolve, and to some extent, the only satisfactory answer is to allocate more resources overall to defense purposes than is being done at the moment." We got to compete for the resources. We're not going to do it fair and square. We're damn sure not going to share. So we got to put more into defense. And what does that defense mean? Low intensity operations, more propaganda, and, as he points out, connected with economic pressure. By that, of course, they mean austerity, whatever, everything that we've seen, everything that we would have seen over here in whatever variation or label they were giving it there. No jobs, underemployment, low pay, no health care, no pension, no, all of the, no safety nets, all of the stuff that keeps everybody unstable and insecure. And then on top of that, we're going to hit them with all this propaganda and in increasing levels of propaganda. He also talks about urban insurgency, but just police action. So we're going to hit them with the police. We're going to hit them with, we're going to destroy everybody economically, and then we're going to come with the propaganda. And that's where I'll segue to the little fun part for today, which is my point about that ultimately, what I don't talk about in the book itself, because I really just want to focus on the myth, but I'm very happy to talk about elsewhere and here, of course, is that the myth of Black buying power is just, again, one small, teeny tiny piece within this armament of propaganda. And the conditions it masks are the economic pressure, and infiltration, surveillance, marginalization, incarceration, et cetera, are the insurgencies. So I do think of the mythology around buying power and Black capitalism as very much a part of a colonizing process, and part of a full spectrum dominant assault on a colonized population. And I think that Kitson's work, and I again appreciate Obata for bringing that to my and our attention, well, to the extent that you all didn't know, I didn't know about it. At least his work specifically, but it dovetails perfectly with stuff that I am very much familiar with. I mean, it's all the same. I mean, it's the same language. It's the same point, the same goal, and sounds very much like even what Yasha Levine talks about in Surveillance Valley, in terms of the development of the digital media environment we have now, with the purpose of it. So anyway, all right. So with that, let's have a little bit of fun, because this to me is the fun part. So some of this is a couple weeks old, because I just didn't get around to it initially, and I was just sort of letting a couple buying power pieces pile up. But I want to start here with this story about Beyonce's Ivy Park and Adidas partnership ending, and what is said about that in what is NHNHH. I'm not entirely sure what this is. It's a fashion thing, I think. Okay. So just a little bit here. When Beyonce merged a deal with Adidas years ago, it sprung hope for a successful run like Yeezy with Kanye West before current events. However, even a superstar who sells out stadiums and arenas can't fully crack the mass-produced fashion business. Soon, tabloids broke about the news of Beyonce's sole ownership of Ivy Park. They claim that this article is meant, as they say, to be a deep dive into what happened. We're obviously not going to go through the whole thing, but there's a couple points just to bring out here that people thought about. Beyonce is a sole owner of Ivy Park, but many fans and fashion lovers wondered where the journey would take the songstress. However, the real worry was who would be the brand's newest partner. So again, my point is, here we are with this claim of Black ownership. And it felt very much like the Greenwood banking app and its claims. We're a Black banking app that's actually backed by white capital and a bank, and makes them more money than we're claiming we're going to be able to redistribute back to you. I mean, and here's the same thing. Or feels like the same thing. I don't know as many of the details here, but because you got Beyonce's got Ivy Park, but she's got to get a brand new partner, meaning the sole ownership is what? Considering other artists who have also fostered lucrative streetwear deals, it's a good move. The likes of Tyler, the Creator with Converse, Jay-Z with Reebok, and Missy Elliott with Adidas. And this is apparently one of the shoes. Okay. But skipping ahead, because the deal falls apart. They don't sell as much as they think they're going to sell. Adidas loses the Kanye West deal. Adidas cuts ties with with him and apparently others. 2022 sales reports that Ivy Park and Adidas sales declined more than 50%. 40 million in earnings in 2022 was well below the projected 250 million. And then here's ultimately my point. The overconfidence in Beyonce doesn't translate into sales. However, the buying power from her fans is what matters. Now Beyonce has partnered with Balmain ahead of the Renaissance tour. The Renaissance Couture comprised of 16 off-the-ramp styles. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. The point is, this French company is the new Adidas partner, or the new, equivalent of Adidas in the partnership with this Black-owned, operation. But from the perspective of corporations, marketers, advertisers, it's the buying power of her fans that matters. In other words, what can she make them spend on products that she does not own, or can only bring to market with partners like Adidas and the French Balmain fashion company? it's again just another version of what I'm saying buying power actually is. The measurement of what white corporations, advertisers, marketers can convince themselves really that they can exploit and extract from the colonized Black population. It has nothing to do with some economic strength that can be turned around and redirected back to Black people. The buying power of her customers is what matters as Beyonce delivers those customers. It's another way of, so it's not as deep as what Professor Towns was saying the other day, but this is again where Beyonce becomes the medium, the Negro as medium, the conduit through which ideas, concepts, worldviews, financial transactions, commodities. The audience that she has commodified and delivers, as do media, it's all right there. So definitely, if you missed that one, we check, Towns, our discussion with Professor Towns and Dr. Burroughs on Black media philosophy. Okay, a couple other pieces here. Related to that story, actually, is this one here from NIQ. This is the rebranded Nielsen data production, whatever operation. And let me get the notes turned on here. Black consumers, it says here, possess more power and influence in the retailing marketplace than ever before, given their growing buying power and population rate, in addition to their especially high engagement with social media activism and corporate social responsibility, which has been largely shaping industries from inside and out over the past 2 years. Shaping industries, rebranding industries, not redistributing wealth. And then, by the way, this issue of population rate goes all the way back to like one of the very initial, I think the very first commentary I did on this years ago, where it was at the time more shocking, but they're saying Black people are more powerful simply because there are more of them being born and becoming consumers. And that's being rebranded as some sort of economic power. African Americans are the most compelled to purchase products and shop from retailers that make efforts towards combating racial injustice. So again, they're not saying we're going to end racial injustice. We're not going to redistribute wealth and make Black people whole. We're not going to end the abuse. But we do want companies to be made aware of that you're more likely to get a Black consumer if you demonstrate an effort towards combating racial justice, or injustice rather. We're really combating racial justice, but you're claiming otherwise. Top social issues driving African Americans to make a purchase: racial injustice, equality, hunger, food insecurity, voting, healthcare. So if you put this together with what we've talked about previously and the BlackRock, Larry Fink overt statement, if you want my investment, and all of the major corporations do, you better have a score that reflects something like this for the world to see. Again, we don't care if you actually do anything about that, but you got to have something in there. These common values are not only reflected across Black Americans' consumption patterns, but also on their social media accounts. Black consumers are known to be highly active on social media, especially Twitter, 36.6% of segment, and have proven that they're quick to use their platforms to speak on social issues that matter to them, in addition to showing support for brands and retailers that reflect their values. if there's ever a better condemnation of today's online Twitter activism and all of that stuff and hashtaggery, this is it right here. Hey, this is what they do. They hashtag it up. They black Twitter it up. So get out there and market to them. Oh, and wait till I come back to there's some more. There's some more fun to be had with that black Twitter point. But that's what they're saying. So we're out here like I got followers and I tweeted and I hashtag this. And they're like, yeah, that's what's up. That's beautiful. And watch us market to that and get more of your money. Companies that are looking to tap into Black Americans' wallets must understand what drives these consumers. I love this. This is how much more beautifully overt can we get from them? I love it. Companies that are looking to tap into Black Americans' wallets must understand what drives these consumers and the strong influence they have in shaping trends. By listening to Black consumers, retailers and manufacturers will be able to develop authentic strategies and in turn unlock spend from this highly valuable segment. Unlock spend. Low intensity operations. Because if you want to tap into their wallets, put some kente cloth on and rock on. Rock on. All right. So let's get to Black Twitter, because that's what Black people do. And the marketers know it. But there's an interesting, you got to love the colonial contradictions when they happen. We got to have a little bit of fun with the colonizing contradictions when they happen. The fate of Black Twitter remains unclear after Elon Musk's platform takeover. And no disrespect, but I do crack up when R.M. Brown plays that drop. Iluma! The fate of Black Twitter remains unclear after Iluma platform takeover. And as the platform changes and users potentially view it differently, it remains to be seen what will become of Black Twitter, an online place where predominantly Black and brown voices draw attention to issues that concern historically marginalized communities and to share communal experiences. Right, because 6 months after Elon Musk bought Twitter, the social media platform has seen tremendous changes, from overhauling the app's content policies to reinstating banned and problematic accounts. From agencies that I've worked with, both multicultural and total market, Black Twitter was always seen as the barometer of what is happening in culture, said Denitria N. Lewis, Group Director of Social Marketing and Strategy at Dentsu Creative. What marketers lose from that is access to real and authentic exploration of community culture. So I remember, whether it was the good brother Andre Brock or some of my other colleagues in, the Center for Critical Race and Digital Studies. I forgot. I'm nominally involved with all these groups that I seem to have difficulty finding ways to engage, but there's a lot of fandom in these spaces for Black Twitter and the power of Black Twitter to move and shape and advance the struggle. And I've been saying for years, I do not agree. For a variety of reasons, whether it's the low intensity operations reasons or just these. Because from their point of view, hey, we love it when Black folks get out there and talk trash on Twitter and complain and call brands out and hashtag it up, because then we just create marketing. We just hire Black people. We hire Black and brown people and we've trained to do this work. And then we create campaigns around what people in the community or in these streets, whether those streets are digital, real, or
tree-lined streets.
we're going to market to them. So for marketers and advertisers, Black Twitter is a cultural marketing powerhouse. For marketers and advertisers, Black Twitter is a cultural and marketing powerhouse. Now, when someone shows me the data that contradicts the data we cover here on a regular basis about the actual economic condition of Black people, and they show us the reports that Black Twitter has advanced the material condition of Black people, until that data emerges, it's marketers and advertisers that find the marketing powerhouse in these spaces. At the height of Black Lives Matter and George Floyd murder protests, when many were ordered to stay at home, it continued to be a place of conversation and community. At the time, tweets regarding the movement took off with more than 390 million tweets. At one point, there were more than 200 tweets per second about it. In response, Twitter launched a multi-city out-of-home campaign to support those voices, as well as guidance as to how marketers and advertisers could listen and learn from Black voices on the platform. And who did they hire? I'm going to come to that because God is a VP of marketing. Oh, man. I was at a conference. I was in 2 academic conference spaces prior to the pandemic where in a different context, because it wasn't in reference to George Floyd. I want to say it was in reference to Ferguson. But the point was being made about the flurry of tweets from Black people that moved the struggle forward. And I was like, I don't agree for a variety of reasons. This would be one of them. Because as it says here, Black Twitter has become the blueprint for multicultural marketing and advertising, said Denise Branch, an independent anti-racism educator and diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. Every time I see, I'm not going to lie to you, every time I see DEI, I see CIA or DIA. But that's just my own particular form of political dyslexia. But now marketers question, because what the fate of the captured non-white audience on Twitter will look like as changes to Twitter and Musk's own Twitter tirades have left both advertisers and users, especially users of color, feeling uneasy. Shout out to my sociology class my own inclusion, myself included, our collective struggle with the brilliance of Sylvia Winter around the question of people of color who now feel uneasy. Marginalized voices on Twitter have been ruthlessly deprioritized in a way that feels malicious, a former Twitter employee speaking on condition of anonymity told Digiday. I hope that we can learn from the lesson of what we lost. Even civil rights leaders from organizations like Media Matters, Free Press, Accountable Tech, and Color of Change called on advertisers last fall to stop spending on the platform in response to increased hate and offensive speech and other changes it must take over per reports. By December, ad spend fell on Twitter by over 70% per Reuters. Musk blamed activist pressure on advertisers. But the problem is, if advertisers can't advertise on Twitter, then what value is Twitter? I should just stop there. And Twitter is slowly losing its grip on as the go-to platform to reach multicultural audiences, 3 agencies execs told Digiday. Black Twitter's buying power. So now Black Twitter, not only do Black people, but Black Twitter has a buying power. Multicultural communities have long since been a line item in marketing strategies as advertisers work to reach those communities. It makes sense as Black buying power in the US is estimated to grow to $1.98 trillion by 2025, according to Nielsen. According to Nielsen, you say? According to Nielsen, you say? Oh, wait a minute. Is this the one? Let me just double check real quick. Oh, yeah, this is the one. By the way, okay, so this is the one. Let me just show you real quick. Sometimes I confuse myself. There's so many, but this one, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna ask you to take my word for it, and then encourage you not to, and check me on it if you like. But if you go to this report, which I did do, I downloaded this report. If you go to this report, first of all, I don't know that they've linked to the correct one, because I don't think this is the report that they meant to say that correct. They point to a report that says by 2025, Black buying power is going to go to $1.98 trillion. This is the report that is linked to in that other story, but I don't think this is the report that says that number. This is the report that self-references for the buying power number. In another report that I think I'm going to pull up shortly, they reference the Selig Center as per usual. But here, there's no, I think I even showed it on this here before, because the only, yeah, in fact, I'm almost sure I did that, because the citation for the buying power reference in this report is Nielsen NIQ, with no specific report, no link, it just says itself. They don't even bother to but anyway, but according to Nielsen, wherever they want to, DigiDay is saying that Nielsen is saying 1.98 trillion by 2025. It really doesn't matter, because none of these numbers mean anything. On social media, Black people aged 18 to 34 are 2.3 times as likely to use social media to talk about brands per Nielsen. Again, maybe that's the other one. No, that's the same report. Right. That's the same exact report. Okay. I let hey, Jared is right because Jared said so. And if you want proof that Jared is right because Jared said so, click the link to Jared's report that shows you that Jared is right. But here we go. And this is how we know that God is a VP of marketing. Before Musk's tenure started, the so-called Bird app was poised to officially launch a new creator program, Voices X, which connects diverse and influential voices on Twitter, like those of Black Twitter, with paid opportunities to collaborate and co-create with brands. The program was under the purview of God is Rivera, then Twitter's global director of culture and community, who told DigiDay at the time that she saw her role as building trust with historically marginalized groups that utilize Twitter. Rivera is now at Disney, per her LinkedIn. Other execs who were brought onto the team have also seemingly left, including Olubunkola Buki Ojefu, whose LinkedIn states her tenure ended in January, and Ariel Adkins, who now managing director for Art of Change. So this is where I had to change my initial title and cover art for the title and the cover, or at least on the cover photo, the cover art for this video, to God is a VP of marketing, because per her Twitter handle, her Twitter page. Oh no, that wasn't the right one. Hold on, I'm going to come back to that in a second. Let me. Oh, right, God herself. God herself is a VP of marketing at Disney, the former director of culture and community at Twitter, and possessor of Black Girl Magic. God is Rivera. I think that's a great name. If we were ever to have another child, that would be it. God is whatever. So God is Ball. That would have to be it. God is Ball. But God is Rivera. God is, by her own self-description here, a VP of marketing at Disney. So, as I said, God is a VP of marketing. And more importantly, she was going to revolutionize Twitter for Black people until Elon Musk got in the way. But what was also very interesting, of course, about that last point was that Black Twitter was being monetized by corporations in white America to sell their products to Black people. So again, sort of what was always part of, at least my concern, is right there. So, but because she was, at least, or it still is, a VP of marketing, God is many things, including global director, formerly global director. So this was the program as it was in July of 2020. So because of the because of the, obviously, the COVID pandemic, but the racial pandemic, her passion was and still is, I'm sure, the core focus of her work at Twitter, to make sure the voices of marginalized communities are always heard, that we amplify their perspectives and build a table, mic, and stage for the issues that matter most to them. With that ambition in mind, we're sharing what we're hearing from Black voices on what this community is expecting and demanding to see from brands going forward. So that was it. Hey, you guys are upset. Well, we want to know how brands can make you feel better. Make sure that your company continues to do work to ensure that it is not a trend to jump on, but a commitment to make long-standing change. Don't just jump on a trend. So she's giving the do's and don'ts to what companies can do to best market, to be honest about your company history. Anyway, I think that was all I pulled from this, but that was God is a VP of marketing. Let's see. Nope. Yeah, I guess actually, you know what? That was it. So just a quick recap, just to recap that point, and then there is perhaps one other thing. But if you have any comments, questions, queries, conundrums, catechisms, cacophony, calumny, please resurface them, and I'll jump back there in the chat in a second and see if there's anything I can be of service to. But just to recap, again, this is an issue of low intensity. For me, I think it's best contextualized in this where we started, with this issue of low intensity operations. The overall concern being, from the perspective of those in power, is, I think it still would apply, however, it would be rebranded, but to make sure people don't get angry enough to actually try to organize their conditions out of existence. To recognize that both sides, everybody can engage in what is considered a traditional form of conflict, and that those in power are concerned with this three-pronged set of concerns: the attitudes of the people or public opinion, the mechanisms of managing that public opinion, the techniques of influence, and the fact that, as is still the case largely, we hope at least, though there are different changes and other players on the field at this point, but the hope at least, or the idea from their perspective, is that limitations on the kinds of warfare imposed by nuclear weapons means that all of these other issues are at play here. My particular focus is largely around these two, the attitudes of the people and the way those attitudes are shaped. And this is, again, going back to previous discussions, even debates on this platform, but this is, again, why I keep wanting to be, and why, as a method, I am never, primarily or even at all focused on individuals, celebrities, activists, less so activists, but academics, et cetera, and so forth, because I'm more interested in what is shaping their public opinion. They're shaping their interests and their attitudes, and what are the techniques of that influence. That from the beginning, wireless media, communication, television are seen as effective propaganda, and having the ability to nullify what subversives would want to engage. So those in power are always recognizing or looking for, and to be dominant in, and maybe to even have a monopoly of effective propaganda. And why I think what we're trying here at BPM to try to create new and different public spheres is really important. Because ultimately the issue is a competition of resources. And I'll go ahead and put the close quote in there now. Like Fanon said, colonialism is about the conquering of land and labor. That's it. So low-level urban insurgency combined with propaganda and economic pressure to combat what Kitson predicted would be 1970s and ongoing concern over nationalism and anti-colonial movements is exactly what we're dealing with today, or some form of that is precisely what we're dealing with today. The urban insurgency of the police and military forces, this incredible amount of propaganda, particularly the myth and propaganda of black buying power is my concern, and the economic pressure which creates the conditions that against which people want to rebel in the first place. But as he said, we're not interested in getting rid of those conditions, so we're only going to ramp up the propaganda and the urban insurgency. So that's what I'm trying to, if we're going to ever escalate our levels of struggle, I think this is at least part of what we have to be addressing and aggressively, this propaganda arm of which buying power, banking black, buying back, circulating dollars, myths about Tulsa and black capitalism all have to be wildly combated, strongly, vigorously combated, if we're ever going to get to these other issues properly, that is, of the economic pressure, infiltration, surveillance, marginalization, incarceration, I should add assassination and insurgencies conducted by the state and those in power. All right. That's it. So then one question I'll pose sort of on the way out is, it was suggested the other day, I forgot where we were, one of these shows, that there'd be a buying power a documentary about the myth and propaganda of black buying power. I would love to do that, and I'm open for suggestions as to how that would look. I was struggling to think this morning about how that would look, and would be very open if folks have any suggestions. If not now, hit me up some other point or some other context or other way. Okay. That said, hey, Nelson Mercer, thank you very, very much for this super chat. Speaking of buying power, laughing my ass off. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much. I'm glad to bring some joy to you on this fine day, and I appreciate the super chat. And not to be outdone, Phenomics, really appreciate the super chat. I am never awake early enough on the West Coast to catch the remix morning, but happy 2-year anniversary. We definitely need a well-done documentary about the myth of black buying power. I really appreciate that. And there it is. I didn't even see that part of the comment. We do need a well-done. I don't know. We would have to probably do some sort of, I don't know, we'd have to crowdfund and hire a proper outfit to do that. It shouldn't be left to me. It won't be good enough, but that would be dope. I would love to do that. An audio version. So legally, here's another contradiction. I cannot do an audio version of the book, at least. So I don't know if that's what you meant, but there can't be an audio book. So, and I, you know, we're not as opposed as it may seem at times or feel at times, you know. Yeah, exactly. We just got to, yeah, we got to, you know, right on. Thank you. So anyway, so do you think that if we change zoning laws and city decision making based off expected tax allocation, that would that help provide safety and access? Maybe I'm dropping in the middle of a chat conversation. I don't know if that was addressed specifically to me, but since it's here, my 2 cents quickly would be that this is sort of my point about political power and the ability to shape public policy, impose and defend those decisions. That's what I mean. If we have political power, you can do whatever you want. I mean, Kwame Ture used to have that semi-ironic point about, you know, if white people own all the homes, well, all we then have is the ability to develop movements and assume political power, at which point we raise the taxes on property and live off of the white homeowners. But the point is if you have an organized, if you have political power, you can do basically whatever you want. And if that would be a solution that people want, that'd be great. Can readers make their own version of an audio book? How would I legally? No, you don't have the copyright. I don't have the copyright. So legally, no, but physically, can someone read maybe in a well-recorded, high-quality recording in a nice styled, I don't know, whatever, what is it, orally, an orophilic style? Yeah. Or if people did it, I mean, however, whatever imagined, we can't. Legally, no. Could you, you know, but I have no idea. Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you, Margarita. I'm out of college right now, so your lectures really ground me and make me miss academia. You fill a gap I really needed. So listen, thank you all, because as I keep saying, BPM and being able to bring lectures and presentations here is a gap that is filled for me that I can't fill in my academic job. So that's a perfect balance. I appreciate it. I can't do all this at work. Political power is not gained, family. Politicians get told what to do. So Anthony, I feel like you are enough of an audience member to have heard me say this and make this point repeatedly. So I'll do my best again to accommodate you here now. I am not talking, when I'm talking about political power, I'm being intentionally vague because I'm talking about it in the broader context as powers defined by Huey Newton. The ability to define phenomena and have it act in a desired manner. That comes through organization, radical assumptions of power. I'm not talking about casting another vote for an establishment mainstream politician. As I've also said, I'm a Malcolm X voter, meaning that as Malcolm's last testimony on the vote that he left us, I still think is as good an approach as we could get. Our votes should only go to candidates we develop with platforms we have created that they are beholden to uphold. That's it. That's my approach, whether it's through the after party concept or just in general. That's so I'm not, please don't confuse me with saying vote for whatever one of these corporate funded military industrial complex politicians, and then, hope for the, that's not what I'm talking about. Okay. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate you. Appreciate you hearing me on that one. Thank you. that's fun. Sometimes, hey, my wife will tell you we're about to hit 19 years and I still haven't gotten everything she's trying to impart to me. So Anthony, you well ahead of the curve if I'm the barometer on that one. Oh man. Okay. You know what? Look, we got a couple minutes before Warrior Class. I don't know. I don't feel like did this get covered, but I had to have a little bit of fun with this. Just real quick. Let me just bring this up here real quick. My bad. And Emma, this is a trigger warning for you. So if you're still around, you might want to take a break. But this story from the Wall Street Journal a couple weeks ago, 10 days ago, the U.S. cracked a $3.4 billion crypto heist and Bitcoin's anonymity. Federal authorities are making arrests and seizing funds with the help of new tools to identify criminals through cryptocurrency transactions. James Ong appeared to have pulled off the perfect crime. In December 2012, he stumbled upon a software bug while withdrawing money from his account on Silk Road, an online marketplace used to hide criminal dealings behind the seemingly bulletproof anonymity of blockchain transactions in the dark web. Mr. Zong, a 22-year-old University of Georgia computer science student at the time, used the site to buy cocaine. I accidentally double-clicked the withdrawal button and was shocked to discover that it resulted in allowing me to withdraw double the amount of Bitcoin I had deposited, he later said in federal court. After the first fraudulent withdrawal, Mr. Zong created new accounts and with a few hours of work stole 50,000 Bitcoins worth around $600,000, court papers from federal prosecutors show. Mr. Zong moved the stolen Bitcoins from one account to another for 8 years to cover his tracks. By late 2021, the red-hot crypto market had raised the value of his trove of $3.4 billion. He still lived in a modest house in Athens, Georgia, and dressed in shorts and T-shirts. He had a lake house getaway in Gainesville, Georgia, and a Lamborghini sports car and a $150,000 Tesla. He's been sentenced to less than 2 years. Mr. Zong's case is one of the highest profile examples of how federal authorities have pierced the veil of blockchain transactions. Private and government investigators can now identify wallet addresses associated with terrorists, drug traffickers, money launderers, and cyber criminals, all of which were supposed to be anonymous. Law enforcement agencies working with cryptocurrency exchanges and blockchain analytics companies have compiled data gleaned from earlier investigations, including the Silk Road case, to map the flow of cryptocurrency transactions across criminal networks worldwide. In the past 2 years, the U.S. has seized more than $10 billion worth of digital currency through successful prosecutions, according to the Internal Revenue Service, in essence, by following the money. Instead of subpoenas to banks or other financial institutions, investigators can look to the blockchain for an instant snapshot of the money trail. Every transaction is stored forever in blockchain's online ledger and open for anyone to see. Authorities, since Mr. Zong's heist, authorities and private firms have compiled the equivalent of a blockchain address book to aid the IRS, FBI, and state and local authorities investigating cyber crimes. It's like a guy robbed a bank in the snow. When Bitcoins are stolen, the criminal is now like a guy that robbed a bank in the snow. These advances make it difficult for criminals to convert their spoils to cash. I remember vividly making this point, and I want to say I made it specifically in a back and forth with the blockchain socialist. Because I remember they were saying that one of the examples to make their point about how blockchain can help beat radicals is that you can subvert all of these barriers to send money, this, that, and the third. And I was saying, but you still got to get the money out of the exchange and turn it into whatever currency you're working with locally. And if you can, and they can easily stop you there. So last year, a group of a group that U.S. officials linked to North Korea stole about $720 million by hacking 2 cryptocurrency services. Wow. Working from a San Francisco Airbnb, it took 3 months for Mr. Levin and an economist, Mr. Groninger, a computer science, Mr. Levin, an economist, and Mr. Groninger, a computer scientist, to learn that Mt. Gox, which was maybe still is a crypto exchange, had fewer Bitcoins in reserve than it believed. Today, Mr. Levin said that kind of investigation would take 30 seconds. All told, thieves stole 600,000 Bitcoins from that exchange. The work prompted Messrs. Levin and Groninger to start chain analysis, which now flags risky sources of funds for more than 1,000 clients, including the IRS, FBI, the Drug Enforcement Administration, as well as banks and cryptocurrency exchanges. The company was recently hired by business partners and creditors of the failed cryptocurrency exchange FTX. MasterCard now owns one of these analytic companies as well, too. Oh, Mr. Zong had hoped his visual appeal with all that money would impress a female into having sexual relations with him. He stated his plan did not work. Wah, wah, wah. Come on, man. You telling me all that running around with all that money and all that time for all those years? Anyway, that's a shame. You going to jail and didn't consummate the theft. Oh, man. All right, good people. Listen, I am merely an opening act, getting the crowd amped and hyped for the main event coming up in just under 45 minutes. Warrior Class, Baba Balagoon, Mama Onyika. Oh my God. I'm messing up her name. That's terrible. And are we going to get Ice Cold Carter? I was thinking the same thing, but my children are on the side of the door. But I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I mean, if it's really that deep, and sex workers, you know, let's step up our Omaniki. Thank you. Good God, I am just a mess. Just a mess. But anyway, I'm like, what was that commercial? I'm like the opening act when you get up on stage, you like, thank you, Toronto. And then the dude turns and says, we're in Cleveland. Yeah, honestly, I don't pay attention, so I don't know what they're saying anymore. I don't know. Are they really being quiet, or is everybody, did they just get quiet? I saw that Shaq somebody finally got the subpoena to him. So he apparently had been avoiding his commercial for FTX, and he had been avoiding the subpoena, and he got served. And that was the headline. You got served. Somebody caught him. I know, but it'd be bad sometimes. It'd be bad. I know, Warrior Sis. I know, I know, but you know what I mean. I saw her name. I mean, and it just as soon as I started to say it, it left. You know, but anyway, but I'm gonna be watching, so I'm gonna go stretch, go get some fruit. He should have went to Ghana. I don't know. He couldn't. Dip and duck. I don't know. Anyway. All right, good people. Thanks for checking this out. Please like, share, subscribe. Become a member of the channel if you can. Support the Patreon if you can. Definitely make sure you're in tune with the website at blackpowermedia.org so that again, if you can support financially in any way, please do. Otherwise, just like, share, subscribe, put the shows in your social, do all those good things, and we appreciate it. Other than that, like Fred Hampton used to say to you, we say peace. cause, only if you're willing to fight for it. Thanks, everybody. Catch you next time here at I Mix What I Like and throughout the Black Power Media platform that, again, is fastly becoming your daily source of emancipatory journalism and the restoration of radical meaning to the phrase Black Power. Peace, everybody.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.